Hi, my name is Maya Pimentel, and I make videos like this one. Today I have something special. Please enjoy. There's a certain feeling you get when you gather with your people. When you look around and you see trans flags and non-binary flags and the people holding them. And, well, I'd never seen so many trans people and it felt amazing. There were no fences, there were no corporate sponsors, there were no groups, there was no sign-up sheet. We were just marching the street and anyone could join, and it felt like it was something bigger. It felt amazing. And you see flags, Pakistani, Indian, Turkish. I was inspired by their bravery to fly the flags of places that did not respect them. Seeing this sign, Liberación Trans, made me feel good. I felt seen as a trans Latina. I was marching with a queer Spaniard I had met a little bit before. I had lunch earlier with some other friends we all met before. I got to see some of my friends, which was really great. There was a real spirit of camaraderie, of togetherness. There's a certain feeling you get as you walk past the stopped traffic. We were together. We saw each other. And I got that beautiful, amazing feeling. A feeling that I always chase. And each time I find it, I hope the gap between having it and not having it will be smaller and smaller until that's just how it'll be. That's a feeling of I'm enough being a girl. I don't need to do anything else but be myself. Do the things I love, like make these videos, be with the people I love, and be myself. But I live in California. It's extremely privileged, especially since I made this video on Friday the 24th. The Trans March was the day Roe v. Wade was overturned. So yeah, on the day Roe v. Wade was overturned, my mom very graciously drove me down to San Francisco, and we made it to Dolores Park. And I went to the Intergenerational Brunch, where I wanted to learn more about queer history. Got to see this beautiful bridge and met a lot of really cool people. So I decided to sit down and learn from the other generations about queer history. Come and learn with me.
My name is Armin Sirani. I use they, them pronouns. In general, we all need to learn our history, the history of the world, the history of this country, and then the history of like queer people, LGBTQ people.
Let's hear about the first Trans March.
My name is Lulu Schwartz. I have other names. My pronouns are definitely she and her. It was the first Pride. In those days, it was just a male thing. The lesbians didn't go, and the trans we didn't go. I wasn't living as trans then. I was a submarine. Queer movement in those days was much more radical and edgy. In those days, if you went to a gay bar, the pickup line was, "Do you write?" Like, do you write novels or poetry? Now it's, "What's your mortgage rate?" I mean, I don't want us to be fucking domesticated. I want us to be radicals. Very radical.
Kareed. He, him. But I'm also XXY, so that's okay. A bit different. Well, I lived in a neighborhood that was considered to be very segregated. It was white, Roman, Catholic, Irish, South Boston. And we already had a problem with busing issues and racial equality. And they started the first gay march, and I marched, and I was very afraid. Because if my parents found out, or my neighbors, but I decided it was time. Besides, I was starting out on my own anyway, and I have not stopped, except because of walking difficulties, I can't. So 2018 was the last time I marched, and I marched with the White House for the Blind in San Francisco.
It's not always pretty. It's not always sunshine and butterflies. Sometimes things get hard. Sometimes things get rough. This next part may be disturbing to some viewers.
Like everything, back then in the 80s, when I first came here, was Harvey Milk and George Moscone being assassinated.
As president of the Board of Supervisors, it's my duty to make this announcement. Both Mayor Moscone and Supervisor Harvey Milk have been shot and killed.
After the trial and the sentencing came down, I don't know if you read about that in history, but it was like an important moment.
On November 27th, 1978, San Francisco Supervisor Harvey Milk and San Francisco Mayor George Moscone were shot and killed in San Francisco City Hall by former Supervisor Dan White. Even so, Dan White, who turned himself in, was only sentenced to 5 years with good behavior for the murders.
Because the whole queer community came out to City Hall. I lived in the Tenderloin, so me and like all these, we were like homeless kids. We all like, go down there. And so there was this big riot.
What followed would become known as the White Night Riots.
It was empowering just to get involved, start getting involved, and start fighting the fight. So things like that are like pieces of history that I'd love people to learn about, the 80s, AIDS, all that stuff.
My name is Carrington, and my pronouns are he, him, and his. It was right after I'd come out in 1989, and I was living in the city.
Welcome to the 19th Annual Lesbian and Gay Freedom Day Parade and Celebration.
And I was volunteering with the Shanti Project, working with people with AIDS.
People with AIDS, San Francisco.
People with AIDS contingent.
And I marched for the first time with that contingent, and it was like one of the best days of my life. It was liberating, it was inspiring, and this was in the middle of the AIDS pandemic. It was a challenging time for the community, but to be out there and to feel that support, yeah, that's a few decades ago, right?
The fight continued in the 90s.
My name is Mikkarel, my pronouns are she, her. Oh, that was San Francisco Pride 1993. I was doing lots of HIV prevention outreach, volunteer work, an extension of the Santa Cruz AIDS Project. Oh, I remember seeing this gorgeous, sprightly young being who went by Daisy, bold enough to wear a t-shirt that said, "Nobody knows I'm HIV positive." And Daisy looked like a young David Bowie. Daisy and some other people like Griffin, Swan, really instilled a lot of passion in me. There are times when so many years of Pride and other queer trans liberation activities, you feel like it feels like I should count as military service sometimes. As far as sticking my neck out, I risked my physical safety for queer trans liberation, and I took some big chances, but I don't regret a second of standing my ground.
Whether it was the first queer march, the marches in Boston, the 90s, 80s, the riots, whatever spoke to you, I hope you learned something today. This was just a small part of our history. I encourage you to look up more if you want to learn more. Check out the description for more resources. Thanks so much for watching Part 1, a look back at the history. Part 2 will focus on the future. Thanks so much if you got this far. I'll see you in Part 2.